Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very honored to be here today and share with you our story of how becoming an AI-powered company. I would briefly like to introduce myself. My name is Christopher. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of a company called lengoo. We're in the language technology space, and as just said, we're based just right around the corner here in Berlin. We started the company 5 years ago out of University of Karlsruhe, and before that I worked as a localization manager for one of the major IT consultancies, which is how I got into the language space in the first place. During my studies at Columbia University in New York, I had the amazing opportunity to specialize on state-of-the-art data science, and that's really how I got hooked on machine learning and the tremendous capabilities it can offer. So I'm very much looking forward today to sharing some of this knowledge, but especially how we applied it in a business context. It's a very hands-on talk, walking you through step by step how we are moving an industry into the age of AI. But my motivation is really, as it's applicable, I think these concepts and strategies we have used are applicable to any industry. My motivation is to give you an inspiration how you should think about your AI transformation process. The same way I also do it now since this year as one of the members of the board of directors at Germany's largest digital association, the Bitkom. So let's start right into that. We'll be talking today about translations. What are translations? Very easy, the transformation of content in one language into another. Now, the translation industry itself, it's very interesting. It's a very attractive market. It's continuously growing because of the ever-increasing importance of globalization. However, there are challenges to overcome in that industry to introduce machine learning. In order to understand what challenges these are, we have to quickly look at how machine learning actually works. And I know it's a very simplified way of looking at it, but it does the job in this case. What you need for a machine learning algorithm is basically three things. It's some technology, it's computing power, and it's data you train the algorithms with. So I'm going to make a very bold statement and say that the technology is not playing such a big part anymore, because basically for all problems you can imagine, there are open source, publicly available frameworks out there which you can just use and plug in. Computing power, we all know and talk about all the time. It's not really a big problem anymore because prices are decreasing continuously. So every data scientist you will talk to these days will only focus, or mostly focus, on actual data. And that's where the challenge comes in our industry. It's a highly fragmented industry, and the problem with that is that it doesn't allow you to collect these billions of words that are being translated by humans today centrally to use to train algorithms with it. Now, it's not only a question, though, about data volume, it's also a question of data quality. And the problem with having distributed all of this translation demand across millions of service providers is that it's very difficult to control for a consistent quality. And it goes even further, and maybe some of you in your organizations will experience the same thing. Even within one organization, you have different departments working with different providers, and you can imagine what this means for the consistency of your translations, for the quality of your translations. So when we started out with the company, we were looking at what's the reason for that. Why is this industry so highly fragmented? And when you look at it closely, you will realize that all the processes in place in this industry are just super inefficient. To give you an idea, when you order a translation for 1,000 euro today, only 600 euros actually go into linguistic work, translation, proofreading, quality assurance. The other 400 euros are stuck in repetitive project management tasks, which are currently done by humans. And of course, this huge human project management effort hinders these translation agencies to scale, and hence hinders us from collecting all of this translation data in one central place. So that's where we started our journey. Digitizing and automating all the processes around the translation project with the mere goal to be able to collect for one customer all of its translation data in a consistent high quality in one place. Now, you might think, well, translation, that's a super easy product. What processes are there to automate? But I'm sure that all of you also would agree with me, there's never only the core process, which is in our case, the translation. There are a lot of auxiliary processes required for a full-end translation project from the beginning to the end. Now, I do not want to go into detail here because that's now very industry specific, but there are two things I would like to point out which are generally applicable. The first thing is that it's a myth that process automation and machine learning are exactly the same thing. So when you lie out your processes and try to figure out which ones are actually need machine learning, you will realize very fast that I bet more than 80% of the processes you could automate with just simple, classical, rule-based programming. It was exactly the case with us. So we could build a nice online platform to automate all of that so that companies could manage their translation projects. There was only one process which was a little bit more difficult to automate, which is a classical resource allocation problem, meaning how do I identify for any type of content that is being requested through our platform that always the best qualified translator works for it. That means that it's a translator who's not only a native speaker of the language you want the document to be translated, but also who's a subject matter expert. Now, I do not also want to go any deeper into this, but what I would like to point out is that by automating all these human project management efforts around the translation project, we were already able to generate extremely nice benefits for our customers because we could give them translations much faster and cheaper. And be kindly reminded that this is just the beginning of our AI journey. It's actually a necessity for us in order to allow us to collect this translation data centrally in a very high quality manner. So what you should take from this is that automation and digitization, process automation and digitization is a key and a requirement for a successful AI strategy, because that's the only way how you can collect data to train algorithms later on. It's a lot of hard work. It took us in total, I think, 3 years. But in the process of doing that, you will already be able to realize significant efficiency gains. But now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the actual translation. Because now that we had all of this data collected for our customer in one place and could be sure that it's of really high quality consistently, we could start looking at our core process and how we would automate it. The keyword is machine translation. Now here comes the next challenge. When you think about machine translation, you probably think about the standard online tools you probably use every day. We call these tools generic tools because they are trained on an as large as possible broad data set. And this generalization is great because it allows you to translate any type of content you plug in on the website instantly. And that's exactly what you want from such an online tool. The challenge comes, though, that generalization in machine learning always comes at a price, which is accuracy. It means in our case that the quality of these translations are simply not good enough to be used in a professional setting. So our motivation or our challenge was to change that. How did we do that? Together with our partners, NVIDIA, the European Union, and also our alma mater, we have developed one of the most advanced machine translation technologies out there. And I will walk you through step by step because I think it's very interesting for every industry to see how we think about that. But to introduce that idea, the basic idea is simply not trying to automate the big problem, a universal translator that can translate any type of content, but rather splitting down the problem into its mini problems and then automating training processes around it so that we end up for some of our customers with hundreds of different translation models which are just capable to translate one specific type of content very well, and in that increasing the quality so that it becomes actually usable in a professional setting. And this is how we call it fully automated pipeline for ultra customization of machine translation, but you could replace machine translation with anything else. When a customer, in our case, uploads a document to our platform, we of course first extract the content to be translated. But then comes the clue. Instead of using all of his past translation data, which we have previously collected for him, we look through this data set and take only the most relevant pieces. That means pieces which are similar to the new document to be translated. Let's say you have a marketing brochure to be translated, we would only look at previously translated marketing relevant materials. In that way, we compile an individual training data set that is perfectly tailored to this new translation to be made. Of course, then we save all of the models we have previously translated, so in order to get in there a little bit of efficiency, we would not immediately start training a model, but instead, we would look whether we have trained a model before with a similar training data set and can just use that. But if that's not the case, we spin up a server, we train a translation model on this specific training data set so that the machine translation model learns how a certain customer expresses himself in this respective use case with regard to terminology, style, tonality, sentence structure, etc. But no worries, we still need humans, so we still need someone to correct the last final mistakes. So we have roughly 2,000 expert translators then in our pool. We have built a special tool that is optimized for its so-called post-editing of machine translations to remove these last remaining mistakes before the translation is ready to be used and our entire system is being updated afterwards. Now, you might ask yourself, why are we doing all of this? The reason is that with this ultra-customization approach, we can reach a quality level in machine translation that is 3 times higher than what you are known from in from these online tools. That means our translators can work 3 times faster on translations, which of course means less human effort, which means less cost. And there's one thing I would like to point out here as well. Of course, all of us have the feeling that these generic online tools are great and they're already pretty good. The problem, what you're not thinking about, and I'm sure in all of your respective industries it's the same, is that it's the wrong reference point. There are already efficiency tools in the market, in the translation market, which allow translators to work faster. And when you then compare the purple things with the human, how he's currently working, you will see that there's actually not so much of an efficiency gain by using these tools, whereas when you use an ultra-customized approach like ours, you get this 3 times better results. So let's look again. Remember, by just automating processes before, we had already a great competitive edge with faster and cheaper translations. But now by also automating our core processes, we're getting into a very interesting area, because now we can offer translations at 1/3 of the time and at half the price. And what's also very interesting and most of the time forgotten with machine learning applications, the actual quality is increased. And that is a little bit counterintuitive because you would think machine translations, yeah, they're not really that well. But the thing you can do if you customize your models is that I can get all the information about preferences of a customer, such as which words he likes to use, how long the sentence is, how he wants to address the customer, etc. I can get into the model and with that ensure a consistent translation by feeding all of the translators working for one customer with the same pre-translation. So, obviously, that is the real game changer in terms of just the USP we can provide to our customers. But why I put it there is mostly because I think the only reason why we could do this is because we focused from the very beginning how we could use machine learning to the most extent possible in order to automate everything around a translation project. So, the clue about this is though, and that's something we haven't talked about it yet, and that's why everyone actually is interested in machine learning, is that it's a self-learning system. So remember I said before in this pipeline that every translation that is being approved by a human is put back into the pipeline. That means the pipeline has a little bit more information about the customer, how he likes his translations to be done. So over time, the quality of the machine translation increases, which in return means the translator needs less time to work on the translation. And for some of our more mature customers, we're already translating 6 times faster than in the human-only approach. So, what that means, if you look at it from a more higher level perspective, is that the automation degree with our company is intrinsically getting better and better over time, getting higher and higher over time, and might eventually actually lead to fully autonomous professional translations. Now, we at lengoo, we believe that the only way to achieve full autonomy with machine learning is to not try to automate the entire problem, a universal solution, but instead breaking it down into many problems. And in order to do that, you need a fully automated process, how to compile your training data sets and how to train your models to achieve that. So in the summary of my talk, I would like all of you to take 4 key takeaways from this. The first thing, process automation and digitization is the key requirement to even think about machine learning, because that's the only way how you can control the collection of training data in a consistent, high-quality manner, and at a large scale, of course. The second thing is you have to look at your entire process chain, and you first have to identify which of these partial processes are actually machine learning relevant, meaning there is a learning component with it. Once you have found these machine learning relevant processes, also do not try to automate, to build a one-size-fits-all model, but rather break down the problem into mini problems. Now, in order to do that at a large scale, you need to find a way how you can automatically compile training data sets which are relevant for the respective mini problem. And once you have this training data set together, you also need a way how to automatically train these models. We would summarize all of this together as a fully automated pipeline for machine learning. With that being said, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them afterwards. Thank you.